Most NBA superstars hit their prime and become impossible to ignore. The league watches, the media obsesses, and the whole world pays attention. But somehow, for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, this isn't the case. In just 7 seasons, he's already done what most players never will, winning an MVP, Finals MVP, a championship, and a scoring title. On paper, he's at the very top of the league, and yet nobody seems to care. But why? Why, at the start of his prime of his career, does no one care about Shai, who is seemingly the best player in the league right now? And how did he even become so elite so quickly? Well, to find that out, we have to go back to where it all began in Toronto, Canada. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was born to mother Charmaine, an Olympic sprinter.
My mom has been a competitor. She definitely instilled that in us, like, very young.
And father Vaughn.
Now, growing up, did your dad put a basketball in your crib?
Yeah, he definitely did. That's probably like my first memory as a baby, a basketball in my crib. It was always basketballs in the house.
As their young family grew, with the addition of Shai's cousin, Nikhil, and younger brother, Tomasi, Vaughn began to mentor the group and foster their love for the game.
And when Vince in Toronto, it was 0-1, and they went to Game 7 or Game 6, and Vince missed that jump shot, bro. We were in the stands with Iverson jerseys, all three. I think Shai, Nikhil, and me were all, like, Shai was about 2.5, and I was like, yeah, obviously, I'm gonna tell you my age, but we're all there in Iverson jerseys. I remember walking out, cheering, and the Raptor fans like, oh, you couldn't put them in no Vince jersey? Like, oh, Vince, right? Iverson all day.
Resulting in SGA developing a passion for Allen Iverson.
Allen Iverson was my favorite basketball player growing up. The reason why I had braids as a kid, wore headband, the reason why I started playing basketball.
And setting goals of playing at the same level as his idol.
He was a real receptive kid, sponge, smart, wiry, strong, still just like he is now. But, at the end of the day, it's more about brains than it is the physicality. So he always had the mental side of the game locked, and those things usually translate when you get older.
Training day in and day out at their local YMCA and being pushed by Vaughn.
When they started playing basketball for real, about 5, 6, I was like, Nikhil, you gotta stay away, better than Shai. I said to Shai, if you're gonna catch Nikhil, what do you want, bro? What are you doing?
However, it wasn't just his father that provided Shai with the ultimate motivation. No.
I got cut from that grade 9 team and was telling everyone I was going to the NBA. And obviously I looked crazy back then.
A humbling experience which only saw Gilgeous-Alexander work even harder to ensure he would prove everyone wrong.
Like, for me, growing up, it's always been about visualizing and believing before you achieve. That's something that was taught to me at a very young age. No matter what you want, you have to believe it yourself, or else you're never gonna get it.
Spending hours and hours in his driveway mastering his skill set.
I was watching a Kobe game, and the crowd was chanting the free throw line, and I just remember immediately after the game was over, going outside, chanting MVP to myself at the free throw line, kind of just hoping and dreaming that one day I'd be in that moment.
Which then saw Shai not only making his varsity team in high school, but being given the opportunity to represent Canada at the under 18 level and on their men's team as a junior, resulting in college offers starting to pour in. While SGA initially committed to Florida, after moving to Tennessee for his senior year and averaging 18.4 points, 4.4 rebounds, and 4 assists, Gilgeous-Alexander decided to make a decision that would change his life forever.
Coach Cal, initially, the first thing he told me was, Kentucky is not for everybody. And right then I knew that I was gonna have to compete every day and that's how I'm gonna get better every day. And that's what I want to do.
Yet, things didn't exactly go as planned when Shai arrived in Lexington. As SGA, unlike most players who represent their country at such a young age, came off the Wildcats bench. But here's where Gilgeous-Alexander showed everyone why he was so coveted by head coach John Calipari, because Shai never complained, pouted, or quit. Instead, he just focused on getting better and preparing for his opportunity. However, when SGA did see the court, he faced yet another issue. You see, growing up, Shai, despite standing at 6'6" and having a 7-foot wingspan, trained as a point guard, and his pass-first mindset followed him to Kentucky, meaning he was only averaging 9.6 points in 27.8 minutes of play. But his very first basketball coach would guide him back in the right direction.
So you gotta play the score and make them know you're going to score, and then it makes it easier to pass.
And on December 29th, 2017, Shai's life took a dramatic turn.
Corner three, and it's good. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, another freshman who comes in off the bench. Tons of potential with this kid. They love his defense.
Because in a blowout game versus Louisville, Coach Cal gave his backup guard far more minutes, and SGA took full advantage of it, showcasing his elite change of pace and incredible talent at attacking the rim to find buckets.
He's blossoming in front of our eyes.
Having ended this night by dropping 24, Gilgeous-Alexander had achieved something insane.
I just think I got better each and every chance I got to. Every game I got better. Every practice I got better. I watched a lot of film, and I just try to work at it every morning, and it paid off.
Earning the starting point guard role at Kentucky. However, things just kept getting even crazier for Shai. Firstly, not only was he dominating on the offensive side of the ball, doing things such as dropping 30 points on Vanderbilt, but his frame and elite motor on the defensive side saw SGA's name begin to rise on NBA draft boards.
But he's just one of those rare players, Bill, that it almost takes more pride in his defense than his offense.
Secondly, due to a monster night against Tennessee, in which Gilgeous-Alexander's 29 points had led Kentucky to win the SEC championship, and then guiding his Wildcats to the third round of the March Madness tournament, Shai had a shocking announcement to make.
I want to let the world know that I'll be entering my name to that 2018 NBA draft, and I'll be signed with an agent.
With the 11th pick in the 2018 NBA draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from Hamilton, Canada, and the University of Kentucky.
But despite being chosen 11th overall and promptly traded to the Los Angeles Clippers, serious doubt regarding the Canadian's transition into the NBA existed. Scouts noted his skinny frame would likely make it difficult to play in the much more physical league, and they pointed out another serious flaw.
There are real questions about Gilgeous-Alexander's ability to create his own offense in the half court. Just not a very dynamic pull-up shooter, shoots it flat-footed, and hasn't proven that he can beat under defenses with consistency.
Yet Jerry West, the man pictured in the NBA logo and the person who helped build the Golden State Warriors dynasty from the ground up, chose Shai. Now working for the Clippers, West saw something in him. What that was, the NBA world wasn't so sure about. However, from the first day of training camp, those within the Clippers organization began to see exactly what Jerry saw.
With Shai, I saw it from day one. Like, he was always a player that was responsible, carried himself as a mature professional, he always had big aspirations. He always knew what his end game was.
I want to be known as one of the best players to play the game. I wanted that since I could remember.
From day one, this is a player, this is a guy that put the work in, always carried himself as an adult, and was just mature, just years and years ahead of his time. And you knew something special was going to come out of that.
Because not only was SGA talented, he was also coachable.
If anything was wrong and we had a problem, he didn't want to go back and forth. He didn't want to chirp back at us. All right, let me fix it. Like, Rook, what happened with this? What happened with that? My bad, OG. Yeah. And he goes and fixes it.
And a gym rat, which resulted in this Canadian rookie, after just 9 games on the bench, already moving into LA's starting lineup after assistant Sam Cassell urged his head coach Doc Rivers to do so.
I told Doc, and I said, Doc, this boy can be special.
Then, just 4 games into this new role, Gilgeous-Alexander would do something incredible against the defending NBA champions. November 12th, 2018.
Oh yeah, Shai Gilgeous. And man, he got the mid-range down. His mid-range is so good. And he shoot it with the high release, so it's hard to block at 6'6" when point guard's guarding him.
Yeah.
So you got to put a 2 guard on him. And he's still shooting over 2 guards.
Right.
So I'm like, man, that size and at that age, he's just going to, and once you learn how to shoot the mid-range, I feel like the 3 ball is going to be easier for the shoot.
While scouts just 6 months ago pointed out a very real flaw in SGA's game in his inability to score in the mid-range, it now wasn't.
I guess I'm a learner. I just soak things up.
Shai's insane work ethic would not only see him put away the Warriors thanks to an 18-point night, but go on to average 11 points and 3.3 assists for the remainder of the season, all whilst attacking every single weak point in his game.
So I go up to Shai and I'm like, hey bro, you know how good you is?
And I'm like, nah, bro, like, you got a chance to be really good in this league. He like, what do you mean really good? I'm like, bro, you have a chance to be a superstar. He like, what do you mean superstar? I'm like, you got a chance to be Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And he couldn't believe me. He was kind of shocked.
Thanks to the rapid rise of their rookie, the Clippers managed to win 12 more games than predicted and sneak into the postseason. However, their award for their overachievement, the #1 seed, defending NBA champion Golden State Warriors, who, despite Gilgeous-Alexander scoring 25 points in Game 4 and 22 in Game 6, were simply too formidable of an opponent for the Clippers. Yet, given just how much LA had overperformed, managing to steal 2 victories against the back-to-back champions showed how bright this team's future was. But the man who ultimately ended the Warriors' three-peat dreams later that season in the finals, Kawhi Leonard, changed everything.
What did the Clippers do so right that convinced Kawhi Leonard to sign with them?
Well, they traded for Paul George tonight, and they are sending to Oklahoma City essentially a record collection of draft picks, 4 first-round picks, 4 unprotected future first-round picks, a protected future first-round pick, 2 pick swaps, and outstanding rookie point guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari for Paul George.
Kawhi, after being traded from the San Antonio Spurs to the Toronto Raptors in 2018, rather than his preferred destination of either Los Angeles franchise, was now a free agent and had finally made the move to his hometown. But he had a simple request for the Clippers: pair me with a star. So the Oklahoma City Thunder's general manager, Sam Presti, after this happened to end their season,
Lillard, long range 3, and it's good! At the buzzer! Damian Lillard! Are you kidding me?
I mean, that's a bad shot.
realized it was time to move on from his Paul George, Russell Westbrook experiment, sending PG to LA and Westbrook to the Houston Rockets in exchange for veteran point guard Chris Paul. While Shai was upset to be leaving Los Angeles, his father helped to keep him grounded and focused on the opportunity presented to him.
10 minutes after that, me and him had a conversation like, yo, this is about to be your time. This is your actual opportunity to be who you are, to be the best version of yourself.
But would Shai ever see the playoffs again? Was he really talented enough to be a franchise player in the future? And are you subscribed? While Oklahoma City had retained key players like Dennis Schroeder and big man Steven Adams, plus added one of the game's best point guards and a rapidly improving rookie, ESPN only gave them a 0.2 chance of making the postseason. But this doubt only gave the team fuel to prove everyone wrong.
I think if we just focus on ourselves, try to get better every day and play the best of our ability and as hard as we can, then it'll take us where it takes us, whether that be the playoffs, not the playoffs, the finals run. Never know. And on October 23rd, 2019, Shai was ready to show LA how badly they stuffed up. In his first ever game playing for Oklahoma City, SGA was continuing to show just how rapidly his improvement truly was.
I just try to play at my own pace and not let nobody speed me up.
However, despite topping his career high, the Thunder lost, a theme over their next 16 that only continued, seeing OKC starting their 2019-2020 season 6-11. Therefore, Gilgeous-Alexander turned to his new mentor for guidance.
Man, Shai, he just a basketball head, right? You show me somebody love basketball and crazy about their family, then me and them gonna be tight, right? And so Shai would come over to my house before practice just to eat, because I had a chef. You know what I'm saying? Night after games, Shai at my house, him and Darius Baisley, Lou Dort, or whatnot.
But yeah, I learned a lot from him in terms of thinking the game, angles and things like that. He's obviously a really good player. He's been a really good player for a really long time, and a guy that I looked up to growing up. So I'll continue to learn from him as long as I get to.
As Shai soaked up any and all coaching from CP3, the Thunder, under his leadership, began to turn things around, and as 2019 was coming to a close, SGA was on a tear, averaging 27.8 points, a result of 3 32-point games.
It's a lot of plays, like we'll be in a timeout, and I'll be like, look, Shai, when I used to go by people, this is the play that I would run. So now we're going to run it for you.
That saw his new franchise turn things around, holding an 18-15 record to start 2020. Then, thanks to nights such as his first ever triple-double, 20 points, 10 assists, and 20 rebounds, the Thunder would not only make the playoffs, but enter as the 5th seed in the Western Conference, earning them a first-round series against the Houston Rockets. However, during the two franchises' initial battle, SGA struggled. He shot just 25% from the field, completely letting down his teammates' great games as the Rockets left victorious. Shai was devastated. Perhaps he wasn't capable of being a franchise player. Maybe he was just a regular season guy, someone who faltered when the lights got brighter. Or was he? Game 2. Game 2. Fueled by his struggles from Game 1, Gilgeous-Alexander came out in the second battle on fire, showcasing his new and improved long-range jumper by knocking down 3 threes, whilst continuing his epic ability at attacking the rim and creating in the mid-range. However, while Shai had scored 31, it was ultimately not enough to push his Thunder into the win column, a tragic theme which only continued throughout the series. SGA's 14.8 point average on a poor 43% from the field was nowhere near enough to help his Thunder, and while they did have a chance to move on in Game 7,
and they get it blown up and ball game over,
they unfortunately failed.
We fought hard all year. Obviously, a lot of people doubted us, but we didn't doubt ourselves. We didn't give a damn about anybody's predictions going into any series. In any game, we expected to win, right? And that's the way we played all season long. Every game, we expected to win. And so, yeah, that's a tough one.
Yet, while everyone else on his squad was devastated, the Thunder sophomore had a different outlook.
Yeah, I feel like this organization is in a good spot to get better. And I think this organization, they've obviously done it in the past with guys like Russell, Kevin, and James. So I think they know what it takes and they know how to do it, and it's only a matter of time.
Sam Presti, realizing his new point guard could truly be the future of his franchise, decided to restart his failed rebuilding attempt, trading away Chris Paul, Dennis Schroeder, and Steven Adams in exchange for even more draft picks, and choosing not to re-sign head coach Billy Donovan, instead promoting their G League leader Mark Daigneault, meaning everything for the foreseeable future was going to be built around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And on February 24th, 2021, he showed the rest of the league why.
This time, tough step back three, and he knocks it down.
Because SGA could do it all at all 3 levels, knocking down any type of 3 you could think of.
Here's SGA, already with 29, make it 32.
Scoring jumpers in the mid-range, all whilst he was leading the whole NBA in drives per game.
How about that, man?
Oh.
A 42-point night that, thanks to fellow Canadian teammate Lou Dort hitting the game winner, that showed just how gifted the Thunder's new star was. However, behind the scenes, Shai was struggling. His foot was in constant pain, and with the Thunder announcing their rising guard was going to miss the remainder of the season with a foot tear, OKC would end their 2020-2021 season with the 4th worst record in the league. Yet, the Thunder had multiple picks in the 2021 draft, which they used on Josh Giddey, Alperen Sengun, who they then flipped to the Rockets for, guess what? More picks, and signed Gilgeous-Alexander to a 5-year, $172 million extension.
When we do get back to the postseason, we want it to be an arrival and not an appearance. And arrival meaning that we can return, we can be there, we can take some some chance or bad fortune and not have it sink us completely. We don't want a position where we get there, but we have no way to get back. And that's the focus and the precision with which we're working. And I feel extremely confident and optimistic about the future that we have here.
Yet, the future Presti was thinking about was seemingly decades away, as Oklahoma City's 2021-2022 season was disastrous. They set an NBA record for the largest losing margin, falling by 72 points against the Memphis Grizzlies. And while Shai would provide insane numbers in the games he actually appeared in, averaging 30.4 points, 7.3 assists, and 1.7 steals throughout March, his season was once again cut short due to ankle soreness. However, despite the constant losing, SGA remained humble and focused.
Every night you lose, it's tough. You want to win the game. We're all competitors.
I can say that for the guys in this group. We all want to win badly. But when you know it's headed in the right direction, and it goes back to my trust in Sam and Coach Mark, you know guys are doing the right things behind the scenes. You know it'll eventually turn around. And when you feel it going in the right direction, it makes it a little bit easier.
And things were about to take a shocking turn. Because not only would the Thunder land versatile 7-footer Chet Holmgren with their second pick, but they would pick up Swiss Army knife guard Jalen Williams with their 12th pick, two players that Presti knew would be vital for their future success. However, before the 2022-2023 season began, Chet was competing in a Pro-Am game where he would tragically injure his foot and be ruled out for his whole first year in the league.
And you feel like you let everybody down, and when that's taken away from you, it's pretty rough.
But as usual, Gilgeous-Alexander remained level-headed.
I know what I signed up for, and I signed a 5-year extension.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're going to be losing for much longer.
And on November 16th, 2022, he did something that shocked the NBA.
2 to tie, 3 to take the lead. Shai checks, steps back, 3-point shot on the way. He's good.
A feat which he repeated just a month later.
Shai gets it, spins away, baseline shot. Shai puts it in and walks it off in OKC. Kissing the Blazers goodnight.
Shai, now finally healthy, and after another offseason of intense focus and work, was flourishing.
He has a little D-Wade, the shiftiness, like the pace. He know when to take off. He know when to speed up. He know when to shot fake. He know how to get to his spots. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna speed him up. He gonna take whatever you give him. You send me left, I'm going left. I got something for that. When you talking about the poise of like not speeding somebody up, like you don't see that.
His 31.4 point, 5.5 assist, 4.8 rebound on 51% shooting averages not only saw him named as just an all-star, but SGA making the All-NBA first team and entering the MVP discussion, finishing 5th. But the crazy thing is, it wasn't just Gilgeous-Alexander exploding either.
The thing that strikes you about Jalen Williams is his size, his frame, his length, the size of his hands. Like he's just a big human being who has dribbling skills and shooting skills and can attack the basket and can guard. I would argue that he's making a late push for Rookie of the Year.
The combined play of Shai and who was nicknamed J-Dub, due to the fact the Thunder had selected another Jalen Williams in that same draft, saw the Thunder make a massive turnaround, adding 16 wins. While they ultimately failed to enter the postseason in the stacked Western Conference, the arrival of Chet in the following season, and another offseason of development for SGA and Williams gave Thunder fans hope.
I'm so invested in basketball, like every day, 365 days a year. I don't really know what my life's gonna look like when it's done.
But despite all of this, one consistent issue remained. Were the Thunder simply too young to see any success? The 2023-2024 season was going to be Shai's 6th, J-Dub's 2nd, and Chet's 1st. Way too early for many analysts to give them any credit. Yet, what was about to happen would put the NBA on notice not only for right now, but the next decade.
Really and truly, for me, it just comes down to like I want to be an NBA champion.
Yeah.
And so many great players throughout the years don't get to say they've done that.
Motivated to achieve his one true goal, SGA locked himself in the gym.
Yeah, he's overly competitive. He's probably still in there shooting.
He's probably still in there shooting?
Yeah.
So he's a gym rat?
Yeah.
Focused on ironing out any kinks in his game and becoming even greater at his strengths.
Every summer I want to become a more complete basketball player, and I add stuff to my game.
With the debut of Holmgren, Sam Presti's new-look Thunder squad was complete, and they incredibly began the season with a 23-9 record. Yet, this wasn't even the insane part.
Nuggets by 1. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on the dribble drive, turn, shoot, got it. Wow, big shot for him.
Because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was truly entering his prime.
Inside, the pass, jump shot is up. It's good with 1.8 remaining.
From hitting shocking game winners to putting up mind-boggling stats like it was nothing.
47 games for you with at least 30 this season. That ties the Thunder record. How are you just so consistent, like the Tide, night in and night out?
My whole life is consistent. Everything I do, from when I eat to when I sleep,
to my recovery, to my loved ones. Everything's consistent. And it's a routine for me at this point.
The Thunder were now true championship contenders.
We're watching the changing of the guard. We're watching these guys turn into the LeBrons, the Kobes of our time. We're watching that now. All of these young superstars now, they are starting to put their imprint, their footprint on this game and where it's going to go in the future. And SGA is going to be one of many of these guys.
Oklahoma City, despite being the second youngest squad in the league, had gone from the 10th seed to the 1st. Mark Daigneault had won Coach of the Year, and the Thunder would shockingly sweep the New Orleans Pelicans in the first round, and were now ready for their first real postseason test, the Luka Doncic-led Dallas Mavericks. Honestly, at this point, it feels weird and looks even weirder to see Luka in a Mavs jersey. Does anyone else feel this way? Like, it looks fake. May 13th, 2024, Oklahoma, despite 33 and 31-point nights from their superstar, finds themselves down 2-1. And with Game 4 being played at Dallas, any hope of moving into the Western Conference Finals is slowly slipping away. To make matters worse, with Gilgeous-Alexander only adding 24 as the fourth battle's final period was nearing its end, the Thunder found themselves down 6 points with 6 minutes remaining. Therefore, if OKC had any hope of advancing, Shai had to take over, and fast.
Gilgeous-Alexander, one-on-one with Washington, gets around him and finishes. Gilgeous-Alexander wants to dance with Irving. Fade away, he's got it. Gilgeous-Alexander, chance to tie or take the lead depending on shot selection. SGA takes it at Hardaway. Oh, that's ridiculous! Gilgeous-Alexander, kick, Dort. Yes, sir!
SGA's insane 10-point final quarter plus Chet's clutch free throws had incredibly seen Oklahoma City tie the series, and with it now heading back onto the Thunder's home court, OKC entering their first Western Conference Finals since 2016 seemed more and more likely. However, Oklahoma failed to respond to Luka Doncic in Game 5.
SGA blocked by Doncic!
Who led his Mavericks with a 31-point, 11-rebound, and 10-assist triple-double to be a single victory away from the conference finals. Then, throughout Game 6, OKC would blow a massive 17-point lead and found themselves down 5 with just over a minute remaining. While Shai did his best to bring his team back,
Gilgeous-Alexander drills it, a 3 from Shai, 2-point game with a minute to go. Now on the switch, Lively's got him. He drives, floats it up, and the throwdown. Holmgren gives the Thunder a 1-point lead.
His defensive error, fouling PJ Washington in the corner on the final play of the game, saw the Mavericks moving on and the Thunder heading back home devastated.
Yeah, it sucks. You wish you could take the moment back, but it's not the way life works. You can't. You just have to learn from it, and I will definitely learn from it.
However, as usual, both Gilgeous-Alexander and Presti got to work over the offseason. Sam flipped Josh Giddey for one-time champion defensive focus guard Alex Caruso, signed big man Isaiah Hartenstein, and SGA focused on developing into the leader he needed to become.
He has no ego. There's no, I'm just gonna score, I'm trying to make it by myself. It's never that. I mean, there was even times at the beginning of the season where he threw me a pass, he got trapped, and I threw it to the next man to get a shot, and I'm like, sorry, I'll finish it next time you get you assists. And he's like, I don't care. Like, I just want to win. Like, he's trying to make the team as best as possible. I mean, him playing on both sides of the court, I think that's something that's really underrated. He plays defense.
Whilst at the same time, only growing into a more complete offensive player.
Very great counter-puncher style. Yeah. Right? He knows how to shift you, get you going one way, for you to over-jump it so he can come back the way he wants. Like, it's very under control. His change of speed is very, very good. Knows how to stop on a dime. Really fast and stop to change directions.
But his insane 2024-2025 season performances, such as 3 50 or more point games in a 2-week stretch, had some questioning how ethical his play was, pointing out that Gilgeous-Alexander was foul baiting.
He's figured out a way to mastermind Aruba. That's not a problem. It's not a crime. It's not the player's fault on being able to master the rule book.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the players'
agree.
fault. You know, and I know our fans, you know, get a little upset with it or sometimes, or even some of the, you know, I even get, you know, sometimes upset with
In the
it
moment.
in the moment, you know, but also I got to understand what the rules is.
I'll tell you this, 29 former MVPs average more free throws per game than he does.
While fans debated if what Shai was doing was okay, his teammate Jalen Williams was also flourishing, becoming a 21.6 point per game scorer, an all-star, and an individual who was capable of defending literally anyone. With the Oklahoma City Thunder then finishing the season with the league's best record and SGA claiming the scoring title, they set their sights on the ultimate prize. Yet, due to their inexperience, doubt that they could do it arose.
OKC, really good regular season team. But I don't know if they can do it in the playoffs.
Disbelief, despite OKC sweeping the Memphis Grizzlies during their first round matchup, which seemingly grew, because as the buzzer rang in Game 3 of their second round series against Denver, marking the Nuggets' second victory of the series, analysts believe the Thunder were going to repeat their previous playoff run's early exit. Yet, SGA thought otherwise.
As you're walking off the floor, you had a big smile. What's going through your mind at that moment?
Some fans were taunting me, and I know how the game goes. I know how life is. It's easy to taunt, and when you're up, and I don't ever want to show them that I'm defeated or mad or anything like that. Nothing's written. The series is not over, and we have a lot to be optimistic about. I didn't perform the way I did down the stretch, but I have an opportunity in the next game and the next game after that to make up for it, and I'm optimistic about it.
Game 4. Oklahoma finds themselves down 8 points in the final period, just minutes away from Denver, holding a commanding 3-1 lead. However, Shai's maturity and mental toughness began to shine.
It's the playoffs. You can't hang your head, you can't pout, you have to be where your feet are, you have to look what's next, look what's in front of you, and attack that moment.
Willing his squad back with epic efforts on both sides of the basketball, including a 9-point final quarter, which saw his team tie the series at 2 apiece. Yet, with the two franchises splitting Games 5 and 6, it all came down to this. Game 7, win or go home. Knowing full well they had to do something, anything, to slow Denver's MVP Nikola Jokic down, Coach Daigneault made a very interesting move, starting his 6'5" guard Alex Caruso on the 7-foot Jokic. But the craziest part about this wasn't the fact that Mark tried it, no, it's the fact that it worked. Nikola only managed to record 20 points, and the Thunder defense forced him into 5 turnovers. Combine this with their own MVP candidate scoring 35 points, and Oklahoma City was now preparing for a Western Conference Finals battle against Shai's cousin and his Minnesota Timberwolves. But could they really get it done?
I believe that the Minnesota Timberwolves should be the favorite to win the championship at this point. I think they should be favored over the Knicks. I think they should be favored over the Indiana Pacers. I think they should be favored over OKC even.
Could the Thunder move past the Wolves, who were in this exact same position just a season ago?
So I asked you guys, what % chance do you give the Thunder to reach the NBA Finals? Gil, you said 0%.
Or would this be the end of their road? Game 2.
Congratulations. You are the NBA Kia MVP.
Having just been crowned with his first ever Most Valuable Player award, Gilgeous-Alexander got to work at showcasing exactly why he deserved it, following his 31-point Game 1 up with an epic 38-point, 8-assist, and 3-steal night, seeing his Thunder hold the commanding 2-0 lead. However, with the Wolves now playing in front of their home fans in Game 3 and devising an intensive defensive scheme aimed at slowing SGA down, the Thunder superstar struggled, only scoring 14 points and shooting just 30% from the field as Minnesota had seemingly regained momentum in the series. But once again, Shai and his young Thunder squad remained mentally strong, adjusting to the increased defensive pressure and resuming their domination of the West. SGA would go out and drop a shocking 40 points in Game 4.
They're growing into a monster.
right before our eyes.
And then 34 in Game 5, closing out the Wolves and heading to the franchise's first NBA Finals since 2012.
This is a step in the right direction, but we have a lot more work to do, and we know that, and that's what we're focused on. So let's buckle up and get ready.
Yet, once again, just like the Denver series, as the final buzzer sounded in Game 3, it was the Thunder, thanks to blowing a 15-point lead in Game 1 and faltering in their third battle, who were down 2-1 against the rising Indiana Pacers.
The Indiana Pacers have figured out how to play at this level. OKC has not.
To make matters worse, the must-win Game 4 was being played in Indianapolis, making the task at hand almost impossible.
Learn from your mistakes, rest, recovery, do everything we can to be a better basketball team come next game.
Game 4. Things aren't looking good for the Thunder. With 4 minutes left, the scores remain locked, and given the insane clutch performances the Pacers have shown on their run to this championship round, anything could happen. So, Oklahoma knew what they had to do.
At the end of the game, when it's crunch time, we're going to Shai.
Over the last minutes of this fourth battle, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander would go on an insane tear, outscoring the whole of Indiana by himself. A 14-7 run, which, after Jalen Williams had a 40-piece in Game 5, that saw the Thunder now 1 win away from the Larry O'Brien Trophy. But despite the Pacers' leader, Tyrese Halliburton, playing a limited role in Game 6 due to a calf strain, Indiana, guided by another Canadian, Andrew Nembhard, and former Toronto Raptor, Pascal Siakam, never gave up, meaning the NBA Finals all came down to this. Game 7.
It's one game for everything you ever dreamed of. If you win it, you get everything. If you lose it, you get nothing. It's that simple.
The Indiana Pacers, who had been on one of the most incredible playoff runs in recent history, defeating the defending NBA champion Boston Celtics and shocking the New York Knicks just to get here, were seemingly about to crown their insane run. Tyrese Halliburton had added in 3 threes early, and the momentum was swinging towards Indiana until...
Good contest from Dort. Halliburton falls down. He looks hurt.
My heart dropped for him. Like, I couldn't imagine playing the biggest game of my life and something like that happening. It's so unfortunate. It's not fair. But yeah, I just felt so bad for him.
Halliburton had tragically torn his Achilles, ruling him out for the remainder of Game 7. But just like the two franchises' 6th battle, the Pacers never gave up, shockingly holding the lead as the halftime buzzer rang. Yet, as Oklahoma City left their locker room for the third quarter, they knew exactly what they had to do. The Thunder then went on to methodically rip apart the Pacers' defense, outscoring Indiana by 14 points and holding firmly onto their lead as the fourth quarter buzzer rang out in Oklahoma City, crowning them as the second youngest Kings in NBA history.
For the first time in 25 years, the same player won the regular season MVP, the scoring title, and now he's your finals MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
While we don't know exactly what's in store for SGA's future, OKC's 24-1 start to the 2025-2026 season and Shai's Kobe-like focus and maturity.
Does the regular season record, mean something to you guys? Is that something that you guys want to check off, and would that be notable to achieve that?
Absolutely. Winning matters, and no matter what form it looks like to me. So absolutely.
Likely means a dynasty is brewing in Oklahoma.
It still doesn't feel real to this day that I've accomplished those things. But it goes to show you, when you work hard, put your mind to something, give it a shot, and anything can happen.
Speaking of dynasties, did you know that Tim Duncan, the man who led the San Antonio Spurs to win 5 NBA championships from 1999 to 2014, almost never played basketball? If it wasn't for Hurricane Hugo, Duncan might have become an Olympic swimmer just like his sister. So, if you want to learn more about Tim's swimming career, why he started playing basketball, and how he managed to win 5 NBA championships, click the video on your screen right now.